Hello everybody. Good evening, good day, good night, wherever you are. Good morning. This is part 2 of my museum, California Trails Museum video. And I really love this museum. Please stay tuned for part 2 and part 3 that's coming up next week. But I wanted to explain a little bit on part 2. The second half of the video is about the Donner Party. It was a tragic thing. They were I guess, wagon train, and they came out from Missouri, and they were led by George Donner and his brother and a gentleman named Reed. And they got off of the trail and thought they were going to take a shortcut that someone had recommended who didn't know what he was talking about, and ended up being very tragic. They were stuck up in the mountains in 20 to 25 feet of snow. So needless to say, their wagons didn't go anywhere. And so they had to just dig in and hope to wait it out and hope somebody could come rescue them, which it did. The rescue did come eventually, but they had lost a lot of members of their wagon train and their party and family members, and it was a pretty tragic story. But I'm not going to tell you the whole story here because it would take too long. But please check it out. Google the Donner Party. It's Donner. And it's a very interesting story. So I will be going up there this summer. And they have a memorial and a visitor center where you can actually it's just dedicated to the tragedy of the Donner Party. And I'm going to go up there and videotape that this summer. But right now, they actually do have about 20 feet of snow up there right now. So thank you. So we've had enough down here in the valley. I don't really want to go looking for more. But my daughter just passed through the Donner Pass last night. And of course, they keep the freeways free, but she showed me pictures, and it's like snow just towered over the cars. And I can't even I don't want to go up there. So anyway, this summer, but I'll be going, and it's just gorgeous in the summer. It's green and beautiful, and I'll show you the memorial. It's really interesting. But look it up, Google it, the Donner Party, and the video that I took was on this one is in a little theater, and the audio was not the greatest for filming in there. So it's a little hard to hear, so you're really going to have to strain to hear it. If you have earbuds, I suggest using those. You might be able to hear it better. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up, and please go check out some information on the Donner Party, and we'll get right into the video. And this is part 2. Stay tuned for part 3. View of the country, some of the desert they had to cross. Some kind of chests that they put their belongings in. That mirror is cool. There's part of the trail. Over here they had what they call parting of the ways. Some people went on to Oregon, some people went on to California. So you can see where the trail, Oregon, California. And that's what their wagons had to travel on. Just those dirt rutted roads out through the desert, and heaven forbid that it rained, because your wagon would sink in up to the hub on your wheels, and sometimes the wagons had to be left behind because they just couldn't get them out of the muck. And here's the fork in the road right here. These wagons took off for Oregon. These wagons took off for California. Salt Lake Desert. And many of them said this was the most severe trial that they've ever had. You had to cross these Salt Lake Flats. If they were wet, you were in trouble. And the wagons would begin to sink. You'd have to struggle to get through the muck. And as you can see, some of the wagons didn't fare so well. Some of them sank in up to halfway up the wagons and had to be left behind. And sometimes, if the wagons got stuck and they just were impossible to get out of this muck, they just left them behind. And whatever was in the wagon was left behind with it. And that's the Great Salt Flats. And that's in Utah. Don't want to cross that in the rain. Okay, this is a replica of a huge sandstone bluff. And people had to cross this wall, this great big sandstone wall. And you can see a picture of it here. It's called Record Bluff. And the reason they call it Record Bluff is because as the people came through this passage on their way out west, they would carve their names and the dates they came through into this sandstone cliff. And this is a replica, but you can actually go there and see these names and the carvings. It's pretty cool. And here's an example of actual carvings of pioneers that came through this area on their way west. It's a huge sandstone bluff. People inscribe their names. Sometimes, to afford some dear friends who should be winding their way through, a momentary pleasure in knowing that they were standing just where their dear one had stood. So it's kind of interesting. And here we have a really pretty Native American mural of some of the Native American powwow dances. This is a beautiful museum. They really did a good job on these murals.
They are beautiful. Did you see the one back behind you? Of the Native Americans? That one's really nice.
Let's see. Oh yeah, this is a mural of Native Americans. This sun, it's in the wrong spot. Let me get over here so you can see it better. Here we go. It's lovely. It's a typical Native American village, or so they say. I just wanted to show you this little saying here. I love it. It says, take from the earth and give back to the earth, and don't forget to say please and thank you. I like that saying. Just wanted to show you that. It's life in the desert. And I wanted to note this one too. It's rather sad. It says, since the white man has made a road across our land and killed off our game, we are hungry and there is nothing for us to eat. Our women and children cry for food and we have no food to give them. And the reason for it is because the ranchers took over the water and foraged for their stock, and they dug up mines, trees, and pretty much transformed the Great Basin to adopt a new way of life. It was a very invasive foreign culture that demanded they abandon their dearest traditions. Pretty sad, actually. Here is a nice desert scene. Looks like somebody's horsey didn't make it. And the vultures are all too happy to make a meal out of them.
It's nice till you get to that part. He's telling my boy's grave.
Oh,
The coyote's digging in it. That's gonna be sad.
oh, yeah. This one almost makes me cry. There was a lot of these graves out there. Here's another scene depicting some life out on crossing the desert. Trying to get their cattle to get back up on their feet. A look of desperation. I guess for a time along the trail there was a lot of, you saw a lot of litter along the trail. Wagon wheels half buried in the sand, personal belongings strewn everywhere. It was a tough way to go. And yet people did it by the thousands.
It's late October in the Sierra Nevada, 1846. As days shorten and nights grow colder, a wagon train party sinks into desperation. Bone weary, confused, nerves worn thin, angry, despairing. Known as the Donner Reed Party, when they started out, they numbered 87. The oldest, George Donner, age 62. The 6 youngest, nursing infants. They journeyed 2,500 miles in 7 months, but the company, like the wagons, has fallen to pieces. Minor irritations have festered into suspicions and accusations. Goodwill has given way to wrangling and threats. There's been a banishment and a killing. Water refused to babies parched from thirst. An old man left behind to die. Curses and dissension have fueled a growing panic. And now, with mountains still ahead and 150 miles to go, it is snowing.
The snow was then up to the mule's sides. The farther we went up, the deeper the snow got. So the wagons could not go. So they packed their oxen and started with us carrying a child apiece and driving the oxen in the snow up to their waist. We went on that way 2 miles, and the mules kept rolling down on the snow head foremost. We, the women, were all so tired.
We lost our road, and owing to the depth of the snow on the mountains, we were compelled to abandon our wagons and pack our goods upon oxen. I foresaw the danger plainly and unmistakably. The terror amounted to panic. The mules were lost, the cattle strayed away, and our further progress rendered impossible.
Another store! What should we take? What can be left behind? I must take my box of tobacco. Don't need this bale of calico. No, we cannot. In my calico. I can go no farther. I must sit down and rest. I beg you for God's sake, get over the ridge
The snow came on with blinding fury.
Every day, snow was 4 feet deep.
To make matters worse, another storm began.
Snow is faster. Snow, snow, nothing but snow.
Stop! You gotta turn back! Stop! Stop! We returned to the lake and prepared as best we could for the winter.
Each family built some kind of house and killed all their cattle because they could not live, since the ground was covered with snow.
It was the 1st of November, Auntie, that we went into that camp of snow and suffering.
You miserable cat.
It's snowing fast. The prospect is appalling. We offer our prayers to the Lord.
81 had made it this far. 25 men, 15 women, and 41 children. They constructed 3 windowless cabins of pine logs, a lean-to, and a number of crude tents. The living conditions started out miserable and steadily grew worse. In time, all that was left to eat were ox hides, boiled for hours into a glue-like jelly, bones, and wood mice if they could catch them. When there was nothing else, they ate their pet dogs. The Reed's little dog Cash was last, and the family lived on him for a week. Patrick Breen was the only member of the party to keep a day-to-day journal. By January, the endless snowstorm ceased to be the main topic.
Thursday, 17th. The Alice died night before last. Monday, 21st. Sad news. Jake, Reinhardt, and Smith are dead. The rest of them in a low situation. Snowed all night. Friday, February the 5th. Eddie's child died last night. Tuesday, night. Pike's child all but dead. Wednesday, 10th. Milt Elliott died last night at Murphy's Shanty. Friday, 12th. A warm Thai morning. We hope with the assistance of Almighty God to be able to see the bare surface of the earth once more.
In mid-December, 15 of the strongest had left on snowshoes. It was a grueling march where they endured snow squalls, hallucinations, bloody frozen feet, and starvation. After 4 days of no food, when 5 people had died, they began eating human flesh. It was agreed no one would have to eat any of their relatives. Sarah Graves Fosdick's husband Jay was eaten. Sarah and Mary Graves' father Franklin was eaten. Sarah Foster's younger brother Lemuel was eaten. When the 2 Indian guides, Luis and Salvatore, neared death, they were shot and their flesh eaten. January 18th, 1847, 34 days from the day they left the cabins, the last of the snowshoers reached a settlement. Only 7 of the 15 had survived.
We crossed Truckee Lake on the ice and came to the spot where we'd been told we should find the emigrants. We looked all around, but no living thing except ourselves was in sight, and we thought that all must have perished. Halloo! We raised a loud halloo! Halloo! And then we saw a woman emerge from a hole in the snow.
Over there, I can see her. I can't.
As we approached her, several others made their appearance in like manner, coming out of the snow. They were gaunt with famine, and I never can forget the horrible, ghastly sight they presented. The first woman spoke in a hollow voice, very much agitated.
We don't live for California. Or do you come from heaven?
The snow was about 12 to 14 feet deep and covered everything. They were an awful looking sight. A white and starved looking lot, I can tell you. They were pretty glad to see us. They took on awful, anyhow.
Oh, thank God.
We'll take as many of the little ones as we can.
Take my child.
Such pain and misery. These children are almost all
Wait, so
men, women, and children, crying and praying.
thanks to Almighty God.
After we was there a bit, they told us how they had suffered for months. Food all gone and death taken them on all sides.
We must go now.
We took 21 of them, mostly women and children.
Don't leave him behind.
The strong ones we chose, as we couldn't get the weak ones across. They were bound to die, so we left them. It was pitiful to hear them crying for us. We had to go. It was sure death to stay there.
Mom, you'll never see me again. Do the best you can.
It took 4 relief parties of settlers and mountaineers to bring the emaciated survivors off the mountain. Some died while waiting or along the way. The second relief party was organized by James Reed, who had been banished from the party after killing John Snyder in a fight. William McCutcheon, a member of the Donner Party who had left earlier to get help, returned with the second relief. During the 3-day blizzard, as he worked to keep the fire lit, he was so chilled he didn't notice the fire burned through all 4 of his shirts until the skin of his back was scorched. By that second rescue, some of the starving people who remained were subsisting on the flesh of those who had died. The rescuers themselves nearly died from their heroic efforts, hauling 60-pound packs over mountains where the snow was as deep as 25 feet. They were trapped in howling storms and somehow found the strength to carry survivors who could not walk. The last rescue was completed in April 1847, 11 months after the Donner Party began their overland journey, and 5 months after they were stranded in the mountains. Of the 87 members of the Donner Party, 39 died and 48 survived. As spring returned to the Sierra Nevada, those who had made it began their new lives as Californians. In the shadow of the mountains, they married, remarried, had children, worked and prospered, and many lived to an old age.